Now what I want to talk about is something that could be considered pretty delicate. Here are some things to think about as we talk about purpose and meaning and fulfillment, especially when we're talking to others about it and trying to inspire others into finding a meaningful life. Beware and keep these things in mind. Sometimes people are just surviving and they don't have time to think about their purpose, fulfillment, or meaning. They just got to pay those bills, get to work, and get stuff done. They don't have time to think about what it'd be like to live a life of purpose with rainbows, gumdrops, and bluebirds. That's why I thought it'd be interesting to have a moment to acknowledge the reasons why it can be sometimes inappropriate to talk about purpose. When you talk to someone about purpose, you're making an assumption that their basic needs are met. We cannot start thinking about purpose unless we can eat, sleep, we're safe, making enough money to pay our bills, and we're in a space where there's time to think. A lot of people don't have the luxury of time to think, let alone worry about finding a purpose. Time and resources. Finding a purpose, having a meaningful life, doing the things you want to do takes time and resources. And sometimes we don't have time for that. We're too busy working. And we don't have time to really develop a skill or find a new skill or explore a hobby or try to generate something in ourselves that didn't already exist, or trying to use the talent that we have to turn into a business or a way to make money. We cannot assume that the person in front of us has the time and resources. Shouldn't assume that they don't, but be careful when we enter these conversations, because sometimes the person across from us does not have the time and resources that they need. Access to education and information. Just because you have an education doesn't mean that others have an education. Doesn't mean that and others that don't have a formal education doesn't mean they don't want one. Sometimes they can't get an education. There are all kinds of barriers in the way, unfortunately, for education and information. Even though we have all this information and technology on our phones, and you can basically get a PhD watching YouTube videos if you watch the right ones, still, some people don't have access to the kind of education they need to build the talent, to build something that is in line with their purpose. Let's not assume that everyone has access to what they need, because a lot of people don't. Cultural and social norms. This is a cultural thing. Some cultures don't have a space for purpose. Their culture is about doing and working and being, and that's not a judgment. That's what the culture is. That's how you're born, and that's the family you're raised in. You're not going to even think about purpose. And purpose can sound very Western and very privileged and very full of yourself and very kumbaya, my lord. And it is and can be. And we also know that it's an important part of being human, that we're more effective when our life has meaning, when our work has meaning. And to make work have meaning, sometimes we got to put that in the context of purpose. But be aware that every culture does not support that, and every culture does not understand that. Every culture does not make room for that. Language and terminology. People on the road to their purpose that have had a chance to explore these things have the resources that they need and are kind of privileged in a way that allows them to explore these avenues, often use jargon and terminology I often use on these videos that might not be the jargon that someone else uses. A safe space, psychological safety, emotional intelligence. They're just words that can be a bit condescending. So be aware that we're not all the same place, and that doesn't mean that they're higher or lower. It just means that we have to have sensibility when using words to describe talking about a fulfilling life and purpose, because everyone's not there. We want to be as inclusive as we can and approach this instead of being a teacher or being this is how you do something, being a mentor and show by example and invite the world into the lane of pointing towards your purpose and a fulfilling life. Assumed freedom of choice. It's easy to assume that we all have the same access to choice, and sometimes we don't. There are countries where women are not allowed to be educated. There are countries that don't have the luxury of having a full belly to think about purpose. They're too busy trying to eat. This is what this whole DEI movement is about, and whether it's DEI or ABC or XYZ, let's not get stuck on the name. A rose by any other name would smell as sweet. The work has to be done. DEI is about being aware of the people around you and not assuming that everyone has your perspective, your resources, and your state of mind. They don't. It can be very privileged to assume that they do. That's why learning about other cultures and having a diverse set of perspectives around you really helps you stay grounded and helps you be more empathetic to others. Everyone does not have the same freedom of choice that we might have. Even in America, where is the land of the free and the brave, this ideal of freedom, this ideal of justice and equality, we know is not real. Everyone does not have the freedom of choice. Their choices are driven by their circumstances, and they're too busy surviving to navigate a space where they could even think about a purpose. Keep that in mind. Mental health and stability. Mental health is the next frontier here, because I think that we have not really truly acknowledged and reckoned with the amount of mental illness that is resulting from the pandemic. That was probably already a problem long before that. We don't talk about it enough. We have stigmatized it. And in fact, our mental well-being is everything, because how we see the world through our senses is our reality. And if that reality is warped by some mental illness, you might not have the same kind of life that you deserve. And so we can't assume that people that are going after their dreams have the mental stability to handle what's in front of them. So again, we cannot make assumptions that people have access to the same things that you have. So we have to be careful when talking about these kinds of things, because we don't want to alienate someone or make someone feel bad or look over a challenge that they might have. Positive framing. Talking about purpose in a positive light can sometimes minimize the struggle of others. Oh, it's so easy. Just do what you love. Follow your bliss. You can say that, and it's true. And if you say it in an environment where someone is struggling to make things happen, following your bliss does not mean a life of joy, love, blue sky, and happy songs. It doesn't mean that. Sometimes following your purpose and following your bliss means a lot of hard work. People that are working a number of jobs to pay for a certification, or people that are trying to carve out time to develop a skill, and they're raising children and doing multiple jobs. There are real struggles out there. So we have to be careful how we talk about finding our purpose. It is a beautiful thing when you can, and it is a privilege when you can. Everyone's perspective is not the same, and it's important to be aware of how our positive framing of these subjects can all be off-putting to others. I'm not saying that we have to take responsibility for others. Be who you are, speak your truth, and be aware of the impact on the room. You can behave responsibly without taking responsibility. Success stories. Telling success stories, which I do often hear, can often set up unrealistic expectations of others. Again, it's not your responsibility to care for someone who hears one of your stories, but just make sure you put that story in context. Here's an example. All of these content creators saying that you can have 1 million followers in a year, you can have 10,000 followers in a month. No, you can't. No, you can't. You might be able to get lucky and you have a viral video and you find yourself in a situation that's amazing. That is not the norm. From what I understand, only 10% of YouTube content creators ever get more than 1,000 followers. Put in the comments if I'm wrong. It is really, really hard to do this. And if they keep telling you, you can have success and make money and quit your job, and that would be amazing. And maybe some of us can do that, and hopefully maybe I can do that one day, right? That's not the goal, but what an amazing life that could be. That's not realistic. That's clickbait. You can watch it, take their advice and take it in, but keep it in context that those success stories are not as real as they sound. Those people took 10 years. Very few of them started at the beginning of the year and now have 1 million followers. And if they do, okay, hooray for them. Maybe the topic is hot, and maybe they had a guest speaker or whoever. There are all kinds of reasons why that freak situation can happen. $10,000 a month because of a viral video. I suppose it's possible. That is not realistic. It's probably not going to happen. Be aware that when you're telling your success stories, to make sure they're rooted in reality, so that people are not thinking, oh my God, I can do that too. I can quit my job, because you can't. If you can, go for it, and good for you. That'd be nice. Socioeconomic bias. What does that mean? That means when you're giving the impression that finding your purpose and having a meaningful life means money and fame and achievement. Because it doesn't. Following your purpose does not mean you're going to get paid. Following your purpose does not mean you're going to be considered classically successful. Finding your purpose means you found your purpose. And you're living in your purpose. Dancers, I love this. They dance because they have to dance. A lot of them are not paid what they deserve. In fact, I don't think any dancers are paid what they deserve, except for maybe those music concert dancers that work with artists like Janet Jackson or I'm dating myself. Yeah, dancers who work with Beyonce or those people are paid, right? But that's rare. Most dancers do not make a lot of money, and they're going from gig to gig, and they are happy and loving their lives. They have their struggles and their challenges, and we love to complain and be full of drama because life is dramatic and pain. The struggle's real, and that's how dancers tend to be, and I was one of them, still am. And we love what we do. We are in love with the dance, and we go to take class because we have to. We stay in the studio longer than we need to. We take class on Sundays. We perform on holidays because we love what we do. It is not about getting paid. It's about dancing. That's living your purpose. So be careful as we talk about our purpose, that it doesn't mean that you're going to become famous, that you're going to be rich, and you're going to have achievements and become world renowned. If it happens and that's what you want, great. That is generally not the point of finding your purpose or having your purpose find you. So in summary, the ways that talking about purpose that can make one seem privileged, elitist, and out of touch. The assumption that basic needs are being met. Time and resources. Access to education and information. Cultural and social norms. Language and terminology. Assumed freedom of choice. Mental health and stability. Positive framing. Success stories. Socioeconomic bias. So addressing these points with inclusivity and sensitivity is important. All these videos that I make are really about that, are just about being aware of yourself, being aware of how you impact the room, being aware of how you can be inclusive. How can I make them feel special? How can I make them feel special? If you spend your days trying to make people feel special, it feels good even when it's not returned. And quite often, if you're doing it genuinely with authenticity and transparency, it comes back to you. So be aware of what makes you tick. Be aware of how you impact the space and decide what that's going to be, so that you are living at choice and you're living consciously and you are carving and sculpting your life with love and light, inspiration and fortitude and resilience and all of the things we need to become full people. And let's try to take as many people with us as we can, and not assume that everyone has what we have, and what we may find easy and accessible may be almost impossible to others. So it's important to just be aware of that as we talk about these dreams and aspirations, so that we are not excluding anyone who really might need the inspiration. If you like this video, check out this video in this playlist. Okay, I think I've talked enough today. I'll see you there.